Hello. Um, so usually I begin each video with an explanation of why this recent depressive episode has led me to watching a certain piece of media. And I'll get to that at some point. Before then, I want to explain why I'm in a dark room. And it's not just because I didn't wash my hair. It's because I have this like glow in the dark dragon pendant that's supposed to like glow green in the night. And it's not doing that right now. And it's kind of awkward, but I've already sat myself down and I don't want to turn the lights on. So we out here, it's a spooky kind of night. So I didn't see Loki when it first aired. I don't own Disney Plus, but due to reasons I'll get into soon, I found myself watching the series entirely through YouTube Shorts. On YouTube Shorts, the series is posted in random 1 minute clips, usually with weird framing and voice filters by different bot accounts so that they can avoid the YouTube TVA. And these 1 minute clips usually jump around random parts of an episode or multiple episodes, which makes it really difficult to keep track of what the story is. Recently, I found that I can't really motivate myself to work or to get out of bed, which gives me a lot of time to sit on my phone and watch literal hours of YouTube shorts. So before I get into how this show led to the death of my ego, I think it'd be fun to try to give an explanation of what I think the plot of the show was through having only watched it in the worst way possible. So Loki is a series about Loki Laufeyson, who's the Prince of Asgard, heir to the throne of Jotunheim, the god of mischief, and someone who believes himself to be burdened with a glorious purpose. I didn't see Avengers Endgame, or really any Marvel movie, but through different clips of trying to understand more about this series, I have gathered that this Loki is one from where the Avengers time traveled and he escaped to a random desert using the Tesseract. And unfortunately for him, this action went against what's called the sacred timeline, which is basically like the canon, like what's supposed to happen. So, this group of fanfiction haters called the Time Variance Authority, or TVA, appear to him to arrest him and kill him. And it's there that Loki tells them that he has a glorious purpose and they cannot get in the way of it. This glorious purpose is what we've seen drive Loki throughout his journey. And while he has no clear knowledge of what his destiny is, he's been told his entire life that he's destined for something really cool. And because he never received the love he really wanted as a child, his brain translates that to, oh man, when I realize my glorious purpose, then I'll have everything that's missing. And right now, I think that purpose is to maybe become king of something. And on his mission to get that vague goal, which is sometimes to become king of Asgard and is sometimes, I think, just to become besties with Hawkeye for a bit, he hurts and betrays everyone around him, always justifying it in his head that there's something greater destined for him. But we see in Thor Ragnarok, the only movie I've seen in full, that Loki becomes king and it doesn't even make him happy. Like, he doesn't even know what to do. He just becomes like a patron of the arts, which I think makes him a pretty good king, but Thor's unhappy with it. So even though he's king and he's unhappy, Loki tells himself that the next step to get what he's really destined for is to become the ruler of the nine realms. Our protagonist gets hit by reality as hard as a time punch. Check that timing. When he is suddenly stripped of his powers and clothes, and not just humbled, but destroyed by the TVA. They make him not only watch his own death, but learn that he's responsible for the death of his mother, who's the only person who loved him and continues to love him. Then, on the brink of emotional collapse, he fights against these thoughts by refocusing on escaping the TVA. There's an opening and he takes it, his logic being that if he can escape, he can prove them all wrong. He is a god, not just some variant in a timeline where he has no choices. He won't stay at rock bottom and confront his thoughts. He'll keep running. And by continuing his run, it'll prove that he's still destined for greatness. They are all wrong about him, and wrong for even trying. All he needs to do is find the Tesseract. Instead, Loki finds all the Infinity Stones in a drawer in a TVA office, and they're being used as paperweights, which is when reality finally sets in for him that there is no escaping. In a scene that always makes me a little more emotional than I'd like to admit, whenever a short of it would come up, Loki returns to the room they were interrogating him in, of his own volition, and just sits down and puts his head in his hands. He's allowed to live so that he can catch another Loki variant, who is named Sylvie. They fight, I think, for like a second. Then they're on a train together on like a dying planet. Loki gets drunk and fights some more. Then they're maybe lovers. Loki gets like pruned and put on like I think Ireland planet with a bunch of other variants of himself. Loki and Sylvie then, after fighting like a cloud, meet the dude at the end of time, and Sylvie kills him, thus making every timeline canon. There's something about it starting a new war, but I literally never saw any of that in the shorts, so if it does happen, let me know. Then season 2 happens, and every one of the TVA members who Loki became friends with, like Morbius and Ouroboros, return to their original timelines to live their normal lives. Except Loki, who realizes that he wants to get his friends back because he's lonely. And he does get them back. Also, he can teleport through time now, and he realizes the only way to keep all the fanfiction canon, but without time blowing up, is if he sacrifices himself and becomes the new dude at the end of time. His purpose revealed only when he lost everything and sacrificed himself to give the entire multiverse a chance to live. In an interview with the costume designer, she described Loki's final outfit as him in Asgardian clothing again, returning to his roots. But he's no longer armored. Instead, he's in humble clothes that resemble a monastic. Tom Hiddleston described that after years of playing the character, he came up with Loki's final line to his friends himself. He did it in one take, then did the scene, and cried while sitting on the throne. So that's a long summary of what I think the story was, and I'm pretty sure I didn't miss a single thing. And I guess that means that it's time to summarize what brought me to the point of watching an entire 2-season TV show through 1-minute clips on YouTube. The answer is not depression. At least I don't know. I don't really have a word for what I feel. After my car crash, I found that no matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't get out of bed. I think I also developed like agoraphobia because I kind of entered my SpongeBob era where he's like singing about like indoors and stuff. I would get like sweaty if I even tried to leave my room. I just graduated from my university a few months ago with this cool special honors certificate, and it felt like, with the encouragement of all my mentors, that I was going to go out there into the real world and do something great. I've been told my entire life by the people older than me that I was destined for greatness, that they could tell that there was just something special about me, and to always keep going. I was also always a really lonely child and teenager and adult. And I would fight this feeling of loneliness by saying that I'll show them. When I realize my destiny, all those years I spent crying by myself will have been worth it. And all the people who didn't acknowledge me, they'll sure want to talk to me now. I would even plot out the things I would say to people when I became the president. And, finally being free from an educational environment, even though on graduation day I felt lonelier than I ever have before. I knew that it was finally time to go out there and achieve greatness. So, on the vague promise of a job, I packed up my entire life and moved to Seattle, a city in a state I've never been to before where I knew no one. And if you haven't been following the quick updates that happen before each video, Let me summarize what happened in the first 2 months of realizing my glorious purpose. So, the person who offered me the job I moved here for said that they overestimated their budget, could no longer have me, but that they hoped I enjoyed Seattle. I then got incredibly sick and hospitalized for a bit. I experienced a personal loss back home that still keeps me up at night a little. Um, what else? I get rejected daily from every fellowship and apprenticeship and theater opportunity I apply to, getting second place in every single one and always told the same message like, you're just what we're looking for, but not at this time. I also lost my access to HRT for a while, and the withdrawals of that definitely didn't tear my brain apart and make me very weird and continue to push away the remaining few people in my life. But through all this, I viewed it all as just a minor setback in the great story of me. I mean, what is the fun of a hero's journey without the low point before everything turns around, right? And I kept hoping and praying some opportunity would come and save me from this place where I was so confused and everyone was mean to me and it was cold and dark and raining all the time. And it was just so hard to function. But it was the car crash that really broke my spirit. I was driving home and the light of the sun setting over the beautiful Washington trees and mountains. Something I've never seen before because in California we turn all our nature into a parking lot. I thought to myself that as long as I could still appreciate how beautiful this world is, everything would be all right. 10 minutes after that thought, I'm sitting in my broken car, my life barely saved by airbags, staring back at that same sunset while hoping for nothing more than that someone in my life would answer my calls to help me. Or not even just to help me, to talk me through this. I called out to everyone and heard no answer, and it felt like I had died. My car broken, which was the last thing that kept me moving, and the feeling slowly dawning on me that this is it. This is my life. There's actually nothing great coming for me. There's no one coming to save me, and there's no deeper philosophical meaning to this event. This isn't set up for a greater story. There's nothing special about me. I'm just some guy, some broke guy in a broke car, just like any other guy who got into an accident. The sunset isn't a grand symbol of what's to come. This isn't the turning point of a journey. It's just the setting sun. I'm not going to check my email and see the headline, hey, main character, here's a job in the big city, and here's housing and so much money. We love you, by the way. Don't give up. After working so hard to keep my spirits hopeful that I would escape the TVA, I was forced to realize that there's nowhere I can go, and there's no one coming to save me. All I could do was sit in my car, put my head in my hands, and wait for the tow truck to come. It's actually absurdly funny because while I was waiting for the tow truck, the only text I did get was from my mentor, who, for some reason that I still don't know the answer to, texted me to tell me that my worst theater enemy got accepted for a job I was going for. I read that and I just closed my phone. It's still funny. Like, the universe is a hell of an ironic writer. And maybe that's part of it, how I always refer to the universe in times like this. My faith in my destiny is so wrapped up in my understanding of the universe. I was raised Catholic, and I always believed that God had some grand plan for me, that maybe I was Jesus in disguise, and I just didn't know it. And even after leaving the religion, I kind of recognize now that a lot of my beliefs in God just kind of morphed into an unexamined faith in the universe. Like, even after putting my head in my hands, I still wanted to believe that there was some higher meaning to my suffering. That was kind of shot out of me by the way that the police and the tow truck dude treated me. like this police officer came up to me and I thought she was going to ask if I was okay. And I approach her, like I take a step towards her to be like, hi. And then she puts her hand on like her gun holster. And I'm like, oh my fucking God, what is today? I ask to a universe who would not respond as if today was different than any other day. I was staying with this dude in Washington, and I asked the tow truck person if I could have a ride home. And for some reason, he said no. I then asked the tow truck dude if I could have a ride to the ER because I was feeling some pain in my chest, get into a car crash. It's pretty messed up. And then he laughed at me after I said I didn't have insurance. I was dropped off with my broken car about a 30-minute drive away from the nearest town that I had been to. It was night, and I was in a cardigan, and it was freezing weather, cold like I've never experienced back in California. My phone had died, and because it's Washington, every building was closed, so I couldn't go in and ask someone if I could charge my phone. And there was only one thing I could do: walk back to the only home I knew. I walked along highways and off-roads, following signs for over 2 hours. I think I got dropped off at 8 something, and I got back at 1 a.m. So maybe more than 2 hours, but I stopped a lot. And on the entire walk, not a single person asked me if I needed help. And instead, cars would either honk at me or try to drive up near me to scare me. This one car full of teenagers threw a McDonald's bag at me. But it was mostly chill until it started raining. Eventually, though, I made it home, and the dude I was staying with, we can get into it in another video, but there was some low-key vibes that I wasn't welcome in the house. And I opened the door, and I explained to the man I was staying with why I was home so late. And even though I was literally shivering, the man was just angry at me that the sound of the door opening woke up his dog. Later, I would get kicked out of this house for being trans, and it came as a shock then, but thinking about it now, the signs were there before that this was coming. And it was then, lying on the bed inside a house that I was unwanted in, that I think I reached my absolute lowest. I plugged in my phone and immediately turned it on because I thought I'd have a bunch of texts from people worried about me. I opened my phone and I waited. It was just taking a long time for the messages to load. I have an Android phone. It's weird. It's a bad system. And I kept waiting longer and longer, and I refreshed and refreshed until I realized that there wasn't anything. So in frustration and hurt, I just threw my phone to the side and tried to sleep. Today was bad, but that didn't mean that tomorrow couldn't be better. Except that I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I would just see the crash. So I decided to stay awake and watch YouTube. And now the story comes full circle. My watch time on YouTube Shorts alone was 10 hours in a day, which the thought of breaking down 10 hours into how many different 1-minute clips I watched horrifies me. I hope literally no one does the math because genuinely I don't want to know. But what I do know is that most of that was watching, often repeating, clips of Loki the TV show. Some of the clips I saw would have 3 views on it. I'm working for you, bot accounts. And you could say at that point, I could have just watched the actual show. Spend the money on a Disney Plus subscription or whatever. Not like I'm doing anything else with my life. But that's the insane thing, chat, is I literally thought that too. Why don't I just watch this show? It's kind of getting frustrating. I couldn't even find the motivation to change apps. It felt like if I took the time to switch to Disney Plus, in that brief pause between content rot to other content rot, something bad would happen, whatever that is. It's not like I enjoyed watching the sun rise and set while I mindlessly stared at my phone all day. In fact, I spent 80% of the time not even enjoying the show, just mad at myself for not working to find a solution to my problem and for wasting my time when I should be out there sending emails still or editing my podcast because it's only a matter of time before I get discovered and this is just a minor setback. I don't even like Marvel movies or the characters, really. I mean, I like Mark Ruffalo personally, but like Loki was not high on the list. Why would I have anything to relate to with him? And then I'm on my fifth rewatch of the clip of Loki sitting with his head in his hands, realizing that he's pushed away every genuine connection in his life and it brought him here, all in pursuit of an imagined destiny, while I'm checking my empty DMs to see if anyone's tried to check in on me, coming to the conclusion that I might just genuinely be alone. As alone and in need of a friend as I've been my entire life, but now there was no idea of a glorious purpose shielding me from confronting the feeling. Dreams of everything I'd get to do in my life rapidly being replaced with the knowledge that I'd have to figure out this insurance stuff and I have to get back to work soon just to make money like usual. And there's no soul in the world who cares about where I'm at right now. So let's rewind and figure out how we got here, why don't we? Drop a fat like if you relate to this story. Growing up, my mother gave me a lot of confidence in myself. I felt ignored and isolated from the rest of my family, but my mother, in her own weird way, told me almost every day growing up that I would be the president someday, which is maybe a bit much to tell a child who doesn't know what a president even does. So to me, I had to achieve in order to get the attention I wanted from the rest of my family and people around me who I wanted to think I was cool. When I entered elementary school, I didn't really understand how to make friends or even play with other people properly. It always felt like everyone else had some big book on the rules of social engagement. And I somehow missed it. They didn't pass that one out to me in kindergarten. So when talking to people, it always felt like I had to convince them or I would listen in on other people's conversations and study so I could like use that in order to trick them into talking to me. And in high school, let's say I became a bit of a trickster god at convincing people to talk to me. I'd create characters to take on and pretend to be a person who other people would like more than who I was. Or or I'd create fantastical stories about my life so that people would be interested enough to talk to me. But somehow, those only worked for brief moments. My life in elementary school and middle school was spent in desperate struggle to gain everyone's attention, never understanding why it just didn't come naturally to me as it seemed to have for everyone else. Which sounds nothing at all like Loki. So, how did this TV show help me get through all this history? Returning to the image of Loki, realizing that he has no connection to people and the purpose he spent his entire life chasing isn't coming to him. In Loki, we see the trickster stripped of all his powers, be immediately called out on all his tricks, and forced to learn how to talk to people while being genuine. And I mean, just contrasting season one Loki and season two Loki, the way he talks to others, or talks down to others rather, versus in season two when he's like excited to tell his friends about a thing he researched. I don't know, I guess that's kind of the dream to have people around you who want to listen to you. Shout out to Tom Hiddleston because while still playing Loki, he's communicating such a more down to earth character, a humbled character, to shout out to the costume designer again. Loki is someone now that people could actually have conversations with, form connections with, someone who's speaking to you earnestly when they look into your eyes and isn't pulling some trick or seeing you as a stepping stone to their glory. And as I'm laying in my bed, I see on my screen exactly what I've been misunderstanding. That I don't have to impress people in order for them to like me. And it's making me laugh now because it's so fucking simple. I actually don't have to do anything. And then it finally hit me. And it hit me like I literally, it was I do the hour because I didn't open my curtains, so it felt like a timeless hour where I was just cackling like a madman in my bed. Like I felt like I felt like how Vegeta must have felt going Super Saiyan for the first time. I realized that there's actually nothing I have to do, but more importantly, there's literally nothing I can do to make my life better. I've spent literally my entire life basically constantly clinching and plotting ways to achieve what I imagined my dreams to be, only for my situation to be no different. If anything, this struggle has brought me to a worse place than I was before. And Loki spent at least a few thousand years doing the exact same thing. And at the point the story I got to, he literally went from being a god to being some guy. And he loved being some guy. And despite how hard my ego tried to fight and say, nah, I'm different though, like, come on. Even my great ego couldn't deny that at the end of the day, who was I kidding thinking I was the main character of the universe? This isn't part of a plot. I'm just some guy with a 9 to 5 who needs to really start figuring out how buses work. And I framed that depressingly, but even now, it's kind of awesome. I mean, like, what else would I want life to be? And unlike Loki, I don't think I'm going to become the god of stories anytime soon, at least. The message is not that Loki was humbled, and as a reward for realizing that, he gets to have a really sick new purpose. The message is that he did have a purpose, but not the one he thought he'd have. His purpose could have been to just be a very good TVA employee, and it'd be as glorious and fulfilling as being a god. We do have somewhere that our lives are going, and we can call that a glorious purpose. But whatever we call it, where our lives lead us isn't something we can know. And for the first time, now that it feels like I've lost everything, even my own belief in myself, for the first time, I'm finally excited for where life is going to take me. Instead of feeling like I'm constantly running out of time to achieve the impossible dream of a child, I'm free to let life experience me, see what every new day brings. Instead of trying to control everything, I'm just out here observing the world earnestly and saying, well, I tried what I thought the story was going to be. Let's see what you got. So, full disclosure, I actually wrote this a few weeks ago, but the morning after I finished the script, I did end up getting kicked out of my housing. And since then, there's also been an election, and I've been couch surfing. But since writing this in my notes app, where all my best ideas go, I just want to give a bit of a cool update that even through all that struggle, everything has felt so much lighter and so much more fun to go through. It doesn't feel like I'm being set back. It feels like every day is a new adventure in store for me. So, as a little epilogue to this, little where are they now? Let me tell you that I decided to message some friends to FaceTime. And during that FaceTime, I feel like I laughed harder than I have in so long, just because my mind wasn't on other things. I've also suddenly made a lot of new friends in Seattle. And it feels like maybe these are the friendships I've been searching for since I was a child. In my election video, I ended by saying that everything would be alright. And as an addendum to this much longer video, let me add to that by saying, I see now that there was no greater purpose to my suffering, but that what came from that. Okay, actual future Eden here, and after watching the Cars movie for the first time while I was editing this, I realized that Morbius from Loki, who voiced Lightning McQueen, actually said a better philosophical statement on life than I ever could, and I think that I'd like to leave the video with his words as the final message.
You just gave up the piston cup. You know that?
Ah, this grumpy old race car I know once told me something.
It's just an empty cup.
Daryl, is pushing on the last lap legal?
Hey, man, he's not really pushing him. He's just giving him a little bump draft.
Life is just an empty cup, and we fill it however we want to fill it. Making this video, while it's been a journey, it's also been so fulfilling for my empty cup, and I'm so grateful to share it with all of you. Thank you for watching. Please tell me how you're filling your cups, whether it be with great purpose or with Sunny D. I'd love to hear it. Bye. Good night. It's nighttime when I'm finishing recording this. Bye.